Hey there, love-hate triangle, Jake and Simon and everyone who's watching this. If you don't know, my name is Emma, my channel is Be There, and I'll put a link on that, and I am the books girl. Today I'm going to talk about my 3 favourite books, or they're not really my 3 favourite books, they're the 3 books that are most important to me. Yeah, that'll probably become more clear as I go on. The first book is one that people who know me will be not at all surprised that I've picked this book. It is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I've talked about it briefly before in one of my book videos on my own channel. It is the only novel ever written by Sylvia Plath. It is heavily autobiographical, and it's about a young girl called Esther Greenwood, who is a very gifted university student in early 60s period, and basically her descent into madness and her life from within the bell jar, which is the metaphor that Sylvia Plath uses to describe the feeling of depression. And the reason I love it so much, I read it for the first time when I was, I think, 14, and didn't love it that much, and since then I've studied her poetry, and looking back over the novel, having read her poetry, her writing is just so... I'm gonna sound like a douche, but Jake sounded like a douche talking about music as well, so it's okay. Her writing is like pure, like she uses the most surreal images, but they're always so apt, and you can just tell exactly the feeling or the emotion or whatever it is that she's trying to portray, just so precisely. And it's really uncomfortable to read at times because it's so sort of brutally honest, and obviously it's dealing with quite a lot of grotesque things, being set in a mental institution for about half the novel. And read it. The second book is a book that I read, I think, when I was 10. It's called Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. It's also a film, which I greatly recommend. The film is also brilliant. It's by someone called Fanny Flagg, and it's set in a small Alabama town called Whistle Stop. It spans about a century and sort of follows 2 different threads. The peak of the town of Whistle Stop, the 20s and the 30s going into the Second World War, and then also a 40-year-old woman called Evelyn in the 80s. And it's just basically a really good story. It's not literary at all. The strength of the book lies in the characters. By the end of the book you just love all of them. It's one of the first books that made me cry. It's one of the first books where I just wanted to marry one of the characters so much. The reason I've picked it as being most important to me is because it's one of the first books that I loved, that my mum loved as well. Oh god, I talk about my mum too much in my videos, this is so lame. No, but it was the first time when I realised that books didn't have to be a sort of solitary thing, because up until that point I'd just been reading kids' books, and I didn't really read the same books as most of my friends, and for the first time I had someone who I could like gush over a book with, which was quite a big moment for me. I'm such a loser. And the third book, this is the bit where, these being the books that are most important to me rather than my favourite books, comes into play. This is The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. This book is so beautiful. It belonged to my grandfather. It's falling apart, that's why I'm being so ginger with it. It still has the nameplate in it that my grandfather put there when he was little. This book belongs to John Beale. I don't have a Kindle or an iPad, or, you know, I read books as books, and I'm not anti-Kindle or anti-iPad, and I think they're really useful, especially for school books and, you know, environmentally, but I think there is a lot to be said for the physical book and the physical engagement you have with that book, and the fact that you can leave books behind as a legacy. You can leave books which have your name in the nameplate at the front for your grandchildren, and I don't know, I just felt really connected to my grandfather when I found that, and that's why that book is important to me. I don't really like The Wind in the Willows that much. The thing about books is they are so non-physical, you know, a book is just a way of presenting an idea. Like a novel is always going to have a theme and it's going to be presenting certain ideas about the way the world is, but they're so physical, and the fact that you can have that physical mark of something so not physical. Does this make any sense? I'm sorry I'm rambling, I apologise. But having said all those things, I realised that that doesn't really give you an accurate impression of the things I read now at all. So I'll just tell you the books I'm reading at the moment are The Sorrows of Young Werther by Johann Wolfgang van Goethe, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, and Tender as the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And I just finished reading Trainspotting by Irvine Welsh, I think. Jake, I really enjoyed watching your video. It was great to hear how much you love Brian Wilson again. Simon, I look forward to seeing your video, and also I know you're not going to be doing this in your next video because you'll be doing favourite films and stuff, but I know that we both have quite a similar approach to the Hunger Games in that neither of us have read the book, neither of us particularly want to, and neither of us are that excited to see the film. But I am personally going to see the film tonight, and I assume you're going to see it at some point. So yeah, I would be interested to see if you would do a review of that at some point. Just an idea. This was my video. First video for the Love-Hate Triangle. Don't think it went terribly? Tell me if it went terribly in the comments, and I'll see you guys around.